Welcome, everybody, to the Wonder Boldly podcast. I'm Christine Santos, bringing to you all of the action steps and knowledge I've learned on my journey to becoming an online business owner, quit my corporate job, and now live the life that I desire on my own terms. This podcast is jam-packed with all the knowledge I've gained over the past few years growing my online business. I am so passionate about you going after what it is that you want. I want to encourage and motivate you to know that you too can live the life that you desire. Thank you so much for listening. Let's go. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Wonder Boldly. Today I have with me one of my favorite humans, Colette Brown. She is a personal wellness advocate. We met a couple of years ago in a mastermind, and immediately she is just somebody who draws you in with, first of all, her grace. She is such an amazing human, and she exudes kindness, intelligence, really creating safe spaces you can share with her. And she just drew me in. So we were in this mastermind together, and she has this amazing program, What's on Your Plate, and talking about how to eat in a healthy way. So I purposely said that, and she'll say it much better, but not from a diet. I wasn't looking for a diet. I wasn't even really honestly thinking about it, but the education and her knowledge and the way she talked about it, I was like, I need this in my life. And I will say that before Colette, I thought I know all there is to know about dieting. I've been doing it for years. I know the bad, the good, and I was blown away by how much she taught me and how much I've learned. I'm in one of her classes and she says, as you know, we shouldn't be using foil. And I'm like, we do? I didn't know that. So I was like, this woman, first of all, like I said, I was just drawn to her because of her kindness and her grace. And then this knowledge that she was sharing that was I think is so important for all of us, that I just needed to be part of her world. So we kept connecting in the mastermind. And then she reached out and asked me to work alongside with her and help her grow her business. And I was so excited, and I have learned so much. I am the producer of her podcast. And because of that, I get in my ear every week 2 episodes. And I'm learning so much. So I just love this woman. She is just amazing. She is a public speaker. You'll be seeing those on her Instagram reel. And she is just out there sharing her knowledge, educating for all of us to live well. And I'm so proud and honored to have her on the show today. Colette, it's so nice to have you here.
Christine, I receive all those words. They're so beautiful. And I think it's like a mirror, because I see in you everything that you're describing. And when we met, it was very magical. We connected. And then when I learned that what you were doing was a fit for my business, it was so exciting. And I'm so thankful for you and how you show up with grace, patience, knowledge, wisdom, life experience that only life experience brings, as we know. Right. And it's been an absolute pleasure to just get to know you more and to be a part of your healing journey. It's been just a beautiful thing, and all the questions that you ask, and you really want to dive in and make a difference in your health. And so that lights me up when it resonates with people, what the work that I'm doing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So why don't we dive in with exactly how you sort of said there, the work that you're doing. So if you can, for the audience, so here on the Wonder Boldly podcast, my audience knows a lot of masculine energy from this person here. I'm an action taker. I want to leave my audience with things that they can do, like after listening. So immediately something that they can apply to enhance their life. So we'll get to that at the end. I'll ask you at the end some steps that you can share with the audience. But before we get there, if you can sort of encapsulate the work that you do and your mission in the world so the audience knows where you're coming from and your perspective.
Yeah. That starts a ways back. I was young. I was one of 9. I was the mom. I was the oldest girl, number 2 of 9. And sleep was not prioritized in my home. Not blaming my parents for that, but they just didn't know what they didn't know. And it left me sick often. My 4th grade year, I had strep throat and tonsillitis 7 times and was constantly on antibiotics and didn't understand the depths of how that would affect my health until after I left home, which was kind of a working farm environment, horses, cows, dogs, cats, siblings, and I was receiving the microbiome of the earth. I go to college in a sterile environment, and all of a sudden the floor just falls out from under me, and I start developing cystic acne, horrible stomach pains, feelings of arthritis. They said I had IBS and brain fog and lethargy. Like the list goes on. I was a mess. And it became a way of being. I kept searching for answers and I couldn't really find them. It wasn't black and white. And so before I turned 40, I ended up twice in the emergency room. And the last time was for symptoms of a heart attack. And ultimately, I wound up in the hospital being admitted, and a doctor wanted to operate and take out my appendix. And a nurse at the time that was in the room listening to everything whispers in my ear. This doctor was the third opinion, by the way. I wanted to make sure that that was the issue, and it wasn't. But the nurse whispers in my ear and said, "Colette, I think you have something called leaky gut," but it didn't come from me because I could get fired. And so that took me, I call her my little angel that whispered in my ear. That took me on a search to find out what is leaky gut. And I was very fortunate. I manifested this in my life because I said, I need someone who can explain it to me and give me the answers. And I found a doctor, and he did my blood work, and we met, and he said, "Colette, you're going to be just fine." And I thought, how am I going to be just fine? Mm-hmm. I had been suffering for over 20 years and I was sick as a child, and what's going on? So lo and behold, I changed my diet. I added in some supplements. 30 days later, I was feeling like a brand new person. My stomach pain was gone. My arthritis was gone. My cystic acne was retreating, and I was able to sleep well. My brain fog was going. My energy levels were soaring, and it was euphoric. And so that took me into what I'm doing today, because as that nurse that whispered in my ear, she was my advocate. And I call myself a personal wellness advocate because I want to help you advocate for your health, and not just in the moment or as a diet, but as a lifestyle. And because we can't have good eating and then have really bad home environment with stressful relationships, stressful work environment, no exercise. There's all these components fit together. And so I am a personal wellness advocate. I help people change. And kind of the further along you are in needing help is where I'm going to resonate with you even more, because when I share different things that I do as a lifestyle, some people wonder and scratch their heads and say, how do you do that? I don't think I could. I think that's extreme. And it's really not. And if you follow along with me, you'll understand what I'm talking about, but I'm giving you a very high site here. The other thing that I do is I do have a program. I'm probably not going to be launching it in this year because I'm launching a physical product to take to market to help people eat non-inflammatory, but it's called What's on Your Plate. And it's a course where we walk through mind, body, soul of healing, digging into your why. And I do live cooking demos and share recipes and explain to people how to eat non-inflammatory. And you can Google that if you want. But I've just kind of cut through all the noise out there and lead you down a path of here's a good way to eat 90 or 80% of the time. And of course, you have the 20 to 10% that you're not. And in general, you do have the extremes. But the other thing that I do is I do have a podcast, Limitless Healing with Colette, that my lovely producer is on the call with me today. And she is inspirational in helping me to produce these episodes and get them out so that people can consume them and learn from them, because I do have amazing conversations with people from around the world. And this is a platform in which I can share them and the knowledge that I have to get out there. So you can check that out. And another aspect of my business is I'm going to be hosting a women's wellness retreat in Bodrum, Turkey. And the reason for this is there's a couple of things. And number one is who you surround yourself with influences you. So this is going to be a group of fabulous women who are coming together to heal mind, body, soul. And it's going to also not just be sitting around meditating. It's going to be fun. We're going to be doing fun activities and hikes, and there'll be lectures, yoga. We're going to go in the Aegean Sea. We're going to go on a boat ride. We're going to see different cities in Turkey. And so it's going to be a really beautiful time. And it's also a time for you to let go, because as a woman, we multitask. And we are doing so many things all the time. We're thinking of others. And when you're trying to focus in on your health, when you're trying to prepare a meal for a family that is not as focused on nutrition as you are yet, I'm going to say yet, because once you learn the whole non-inflammatory eating, you want to teach it to your family, and you can make it very tasty and you don't feel like you're missing anything. And so the program allows you to get away from that kind of rat race at home and put your feet up and be spoiled. Like, my goal is to spoil you. The staff will come find you when it's your mealtime, or if you're going to do a juice cleanse, they'll bring you your juices, and there's check-ins. You're going to meet with a doctor to see where you're at when you enter the program, and they'll check you when you leave to see the results. And it's fun to see progress. It's fun to be around people that are like-minded, that are on this journey with you, so that you can track your progress, have people around you that you can bounce off of and say, hey, I'm having a rough day, or this is amazing. Like, what's next? What else can I learn? So it's going to expose you to something new. Novel experiences is so mandatory because they create situations in which you can grow and expand. And we have to be learning new things. And the podcast today that I'm going to be dropping is called Drishti. And it's the Indian Sanskrit word for focus. And when you can have a focus in life, your Drishti, what is that? What does it mean to you? What is your why? And what are you focusing on? What's your Northern Star? So if you do yoga practice, or you're trying to concentrate and get your mindset off of something else, you look at an object and you put your sights on it, and it calms the body. It focuses the mind. It slows everything down. And then if you're doing a pose, it can help you hold your balance. If you're looking around while you're trying to hold a pose, you're going to fall down. And so it's so drishti in life. If you're trying to go somewhere, if you're trying to get healthier, but yet you're looking at all the noise around you, and this person said that, and this person said that, and I don't know what's right, and you have a focus though, and you're in it. So this retreat will give you a focus. It will give you a starting point. If you're already there and you're healthy, it's going to improve that even more. So it's for everybody, beginner or advanced. And it's going to give you an opportunity to focus more in on yourself. And by the way, I've had a couple men that have talked to me about sending their wives or their girlfriends, and they're a little hesitant. And I said, listen, if you send your wife, your girlfriend, they're going to come back to you rejuvenated, and they can give even more. So ladies, we know that when we step down and we pour into ourselves a little bit, we always can show up a little bit better for those that we love. So that's one of my passion projects right now, Christine, that I have going. So that's it in a nutshell.
And that's a lot.
And I'm a mom.
Yeah. So, and you're a mom of two girls.
And a furry dog. a furry child. And my oldest just finished her first year of college, and my youngest is starting high school. So I'm in the thick of it. And so I've gone through also the emotional side of a child leaving home and what that looks like. And it's just, life is always putting things in our pathway, right? Not as challenges necessarily, but to allow us opportunities to experience different things, feel different things. And so having my daughter leaving, I'm now able to speak from a point of experience to others who are reaching that point and reassuring them that it's going to be okay. So that's what happens in life. Like we hit these walls or we experience things because we can learn from them and be a light to others that are experiencing them, whether it's food or exercise or whatever it is in your life. Like we can share together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So I hear you saying that you've created this beautiful, it's a woman's retreat, right?
Yeah.
So no men, just
No
women.
men, just women. Sorry, guys. I've had guys ask if they can come, and I said, nope, not this one.
And so what I hear you saying is, take that pause, do this for yourself. It doesn't matter where you are in your wellness journey, the beginning, if you're really an expert, it's just more about what I'm hearing you say is do something for yourself.
Yes.
And that obviously in return has an impact on your own community because you come back refreshed, rejuvenated. So my question for you is, what do you say to people that you just talked about being a single mom, the two girls, you're very busy. I know that from behind the scenes in your business. What do you say to the women that like, oh, I'd love to, but I can't leave my child, or I can't leave my work, or, how do you approach that? How have you approached that in your life? Because you're a very busy mom, busy entrepreneur, business person. And so what would be your advice there?
My advice, if you're questioning whether this is something you should do, you don't want to leave your kids, there's always excuses. And I think if you're hearing about this event, this retreat, just pause for a second, because things come into our universe, our space, our vicinity when we need things to happen, whether it's good or bad. And I also want to say that stepping down to focus in on yourself is the best gift for you and your family and your work, because we can get stuck in a rut of life and just not even seeing that we need to get out of a situation. I'll give you an example. If you've ever visited Israel, the culture there is very intense. It's very loving, very intense. They're constantly under attack. They have bombs coming in. They have, negative news, and yet they are a leader in technology and science. And there's all this, but they're in a literal pressure cooker, and it's very intense. And the Israelis, when they come out and they're visiting somewhere else, they'll tell you, wow, like I never realized how intense it was there. So from a perspective of visiting another culture, in your home, it could be a different culture. You might not understand the dynamics of or your work of how intense it is right now. And to remove yourself, give yourself a novel experience, take yourself around the world. This is a once in a lifetime trip. You're going to be far enough away. And that's another by design that I have, is because sometimes when there's a retreat that's next door, you bail because, you're not fully present because you're running home to take care of the kids, but this, you're going to be in Turkey and you're there. You're going to take care of, you have your kids covered, the spouse, the grandparents, friends, nanny, whoever it is going to come in, help you out so that you can just take the time for yourself and get out of your normal space and expand your knowledge, your vantage point, your view, see another culture. Mark Twain, one of his infamous quotes was, I can't quote it exactly, but that travel is the best education. And I believe that. I reinforce that with my children. I every opportunity that I get, I take them. I'd rather go on a trip than have a new handbag. Like that's my philosophy. So get out there and experience things, and doing it with like-minded women, and where you're not having to plan the trip. everything is planned for you. You just show up and everything is taken care of. And being a world traveler, that's a luxury because I'm the one that creates the agendas everywhere I go. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of intention. And so this is something that you can share. And I'm encouraging mothers and daughters, do this together. Take your mom, take your daughter. If you're hearing this, it's the opposite. Take a cousin, take a best friend. And by the way, double rooms are discounted. So you can ask me about that if you're interested, and I can tell you about that pricing. But it's not even about the money. It's about creating the experience with somebody that you love and being able to share that to enrich your life. And this is a trip that you can look back on and say, remember when we were in Bodrum on the Aegean Sea? Wasn't that beautiful? I'm so glad I did. And another saying, like, here's another thing that I always tell my girls when they're facing a decision and they don't know what to do and they don't have mom to ask. And I tell them to ask themselves, am I glad that I did, or I wish I had? So ask yourself that question. It's a good one to keep in the brain because we always have choices to make. And maybe you already have a plan during that time and you physically just can't go. But if you don't, this is something that you should grab onto and run. It's going to be a beautiful experience.
Thank you for that. That's beautiful. I want to add to your questions. I want to add to that a little bit. So you said, am I glad that I did, or I wish that I had?
Yes.
Did I get it right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you had shared that story with me about your girls, how you say that to your girls before.
Mm-hmm.
So I had that in my repertoire, if you will, from you. And my daughter is on an experience right now that is something wonderful and great. And it brings up anxiety. And there was a lot of discussion around it. And so I posed those questions thanks to you, Colette. I said, those exact questions because I got them from you. And her response was, well, how did she answer? She said, well, I want to do it. And I said, okay, there's the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So even though it was hard,
yeah,
this particular situation, because whatever, like our own hard, air quotes hard, I've got kids, I've got a job, I've got whatever. Right. Everybody has something that these yeses aren't always easy, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't be a yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I love those. And I just want to share that with you in the audience, that ask yourself those questions. And my example of using that with my daughter was beautiful.
Yeah.
And that helped us as a family move forward with this adventure she's on and know how to handle the situations that come up. So let's say, ladies, you decide, okay, you know what, I'm going to do this. And then, right before you go, your child gets sick. They have a cold or something.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh my gosh, well, now I guess I can't. Remind yourself, are you going to wish you had done that?
Yeah.
Are you going to be glad that you did it?
Yeah.
And then the other words, Colette, that you said, and I just smiled when you were talking, was, you just imagine those words spilling out of your mouth. It's just so beautiful. Remember when we were in Bodrum, Turkey?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Remember
right?
when? Yep. Yep.
Right?
And it's a beautiful memory.
Amazing.
And, and being a mother, I can say that I understand the tug at the heart, when there's something going on at home. And I also know that it's really good too, to create opportunities so your children know that, mommy's always come home, and that it gives an opportunity for other caretakers to care for your child and to give them an experience with somebody else. And whether it's good or bad, like, they're going to appreciate you more because they see who you are, what you give, and they'll be happy. And you're leading by example too, ladies. Like, you want to show your kids, go out there and do things. This is a very short window. Like, they would survive. They'll survive for 1 week without you. Everybody will survive, I promise. And it's just a very magical time that you can come back and share with them about how to do this and what it means to you. Yeah, that's a great, I like that you remember that, Christine. And that's something that my girls always reference. And if you're a parent and you haven't used that, or if you're not a parent, it's something great in life, because we all face those difficult decisions, like, of should I or shouldn't I? And how do I determine that? And so it's a really simple question to help push you over the edge in one way or the other.
Right, exactly. So tell us a little bit about the product that you mentioned earlier. So talking about eating non-inflammatory, I guess first maybe a good place to start is, can you define that for, like, what does that really mean?
So 95% of all autoimmune disease is from the gut. So we need to nourish our gut. One of those ways is, like you mentioned earlier, eating 30 to 40 different plants per week. And it's easy to do if you're throwing in herbs and spices and different types of vegetables and fruit. That's easy to accomplish, even though it might seem overwhelming if you eat like iceberg lettuce and tomatoes for salad every day with wishbone dressing. And that's your green, which I know there's people that do. So, hey, we all start somewhere. And so if you can kind of just start understanding that inflammation leads to disease. Inflammation is necessary. When we cut ourselves, the cut inflames and blood rushes to heal the cut, and it forms a scab. And if you get a sprained ankle, that it swells, like there's swelling, there's times when the body needs to be inflamed. If it's living in a chronic state of inflammation, this is when disease occurs. And it's just like your body is on like this defense all the time. It's constantly defending itself. And this is how diabetes happens. Adult onset diabetes, when you're eating sugar all the time and sugar and sugar and sugar and sugar, your body just shuts down and says, okay, we're done. We're done. And then you have to go on insulin. And by the way, there's ways that you can come back from diabetes if you've had it. So just understanding what foods are inflammatory, where does inflammation come from? And it's kind of deep, but in short, eating non-inflammatory, it's understanding your omega-6s and your omega-3s. And omega-6 is inflammation. Omega-3 is anti-inflammation. So that would be like your salmon, anti-inflammatory, seeds are anti-inflammatory. And the inflammatory foods most of the time come from grains. And I'm not saying that you can never, ever eat a grain again in your life. I would say really watch what you're putting in your body and understand the relationship of what the grains do, because they are high in omega-6. Another thing high in omega-6 is nuts. A lot of people don't know that. We should have a 1-to-1 ratio. And if you're eating almonds, it's about a 2,000-to-1 ratio. So that's why they say, like, eat a handful. And some people can't stop at a handful. And they're having nuts as a replacement for a snack. And they're having gluten-free, which has almond flour. And they're drinking almond milk in their coffee and almond ice cream, so it's like, so you're switching one thing with another. So just being mindful of the foods that are coming in to create less inflammation in the body. If you're eating meat that's not grass fed, those cows are being fed grains and probably hormones. And so when you're eating that, you are receiving what the cow ate. And if you're eating grass fed, then it's not going to be as inflammatory as the other type. So just being mindful. And then of course, dairy, swapping, if you can't live without dairy, swap out cow for sheep and goat. The molecular structure is smaller and it's more compatible with our bodies, and hard cheeses are better than soft cheese. What kind of oils are you using? Are you using vegetable oil, canola oil, peanut oil? These are all very inflammatory, and they can create oxidation, which leads to all kinds of problems and cell breakdown. And it's an easy swap to start using avocado oil for cooking, and coconut oil for cooking, and olive oil for your dressings. And like Christine said, an easy swap again to create less toxins in the body. Switch out your foil for parchment paper. That's a big push. You can easily do that. If you're not going to change anything else, use parchment paper. Who wants metals in their body?
Yeah, exactly.
I hope that explains it. I mean, I try to cram as much as I could in there.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That definitely explains it. I think one question that I hear a lot and I can't answer, and I turn to you is, so we talk about seeds, right? So let me just get my mind right here. So sunflower, let's say sunflower seeds, right? And then we also hear about seed oil. So seeds are important, but the seed oil isn't as good, or?
Yeah, so seeds are great. And what happens is when you convert it to the oil, it creates oxidation. And oxidation in the body creates inflammation, and we need antioxidants to fight free radical damage that is caused by oxidation. And I guess the best way to explain it is, imagine, I always tease my daughters when we're eating your greens, for example, and you have a perfect disc, like a frisbee, and it's spinning perfectly. But let's say that it has a positive and a negative on it, right? Like little balls. And so it's in harmony because it's spinning. It has the perfect symmetry that it needs to spin. And then you take away one of those balls. What happens? It'll fall down. It'll stumble. It's limping, right? It's limping. But if you're eating the antioxidants, you're eating the greens, those greens are going to donate that negative ion that it needs in order to function properly. So when you're putting good things in your body, you're going to help offset the oxidative damage. But why bring it in your body to begin with? Sugar is another one that is harmful and it can cause damage, but eat in moderation. And the other thing that you can do to help prevent the oxidative damage is, after you eat, just move a little bit. Like if you are eating that dessert after dinner, do at least 10 minutes of some kind of exercise, like whether it's going outside and walking, running, jumping, jump rope, push-ups, sit-ups, I don't know, but like do something to move your body, to make your body process that sugar hit that came in. So it's not to replace, it's not to say that you can have that every night and you're going to be fine. But if you are going to do it, then at least help your body to process it.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And so I just want to pause here and just point out as I said in the beginning with Colette, when we met, and the wealth of knowledge that she has. All of these things that she's saying are simple things that we can do to live well. So meaning swap out your oils to avocado oil. So the foil, I now use parchment paper, I think, for everything. I think I maybe went overboard a little bit, but I mean, it's super easy to do, right? And so we hear all of these things like, don't eat this, don't eat the other thing, eat more of that. And so it feels overwhelming. But when you listen to Colette and hear her explain the why, explain the reason behind it, I think that really helps us move the needle forward to say like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I get that. And then doing these simple swaps over time. It's not like you can, but you don't have to throw everything out in the kitchen and then restart over. You could do that. That's great. And that actually sounds lovely to me as a purger, but just bringing those things in and doing those swaps. I know that just from my time with you, I eat totally different now, and I still have a long way to go. I'm not saying, my point is not saying that I eat exactly 100% how I should be eating, but I do eat so different and I think differently. Another thing that you've taught me is about reading the packages. So I'm just going to also pause there and say, if you think you know how to read a package, I'm going to turn it over to Colette, because in the old days, pre-Colette, reading a package would be like, okay, the nutritional, right? So how much fat is in it? How much sugar? Reading the numbers. But really now what Colette has taught me is also reading the ingredients and understanding. So a lot of times when I shop at Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, Stop and Shop, wherever, doesn't matter where. And if you pick up a thing of hummus or something that you think is sort of benign, you're like, oh, it's hummus, chickpeas, whatever. Okay, let me look and see what's in that. You'll be surprised at, oh my gosh, the stuff that is in there.
Yeah.
Like, so it's eye-opening. Like you think, of course, the cookies, of course, the chips, all the obvious, but
Right.
things that you think are like, okay, it's healthy, it's benign, just grab it. Take a
Yeah.
moment and look at the
Yeah.
ingredients.
To add on to that, I taught my girls from an early age, we go through the cereal aisle. That is like worse than the checkout stand with all the stuff they have around you. And I'd let them pick out a cereal, but I said it cannot contain high fructose corn syrup. That's a no. And so the package, on the outside, it's all this like bells and whistles and unicorns and, rainbows and no fructose corn syrup or no high fructose corn syrup. And then they'd bring it, no high fructose corn syrup. And I'd say, flip it over, read the label. And they would, slink down because it wouldn't say high fructose corn syrup. The label would say fructose corn syrup. And so I said, see, it's still in there. It's just a different name. But why do they do that? Why do they lie? Like, so they would get really aggravated at false advertisement. But I taught that to them from a young age because as you get older, you start seeing, like you're trying to make better choices. And the other day I was in Whole Foods and you think that, oh, they've got, everything's great. No, it's not. Just dispel that right now. They have more good options. They were handing out samples of sweet potato chips. And they're like, do you want some? And I said, let me look at the ingredients. And I flip it over. There's like rice flour and it's made with, vegetable oil and flavors, natural flavors. And I have a whole podcast on that. And I just thought, I told the guy, I said, I can't eat it because I can't have these other things that are in it, or I choose not to put them on my body. And he's like, I know it's complete junk. And this is the guy that's selling the product that, they've assigned it to the store, but people were coming by and without reading the label, to your point, Christine, then you can grab it and say, great, like we're going to have a great alternative snack. And so really being mindful of, it doesn't matter what it is. A lot of people are on juice cleanses, juice kicks. And if you flip over a juice bottle, women, we should be having about 25 grams a day, men about 35 grams. If you flip over the bottle and it says 40 grams of sugar, that's more than you should have in a day. And if you're drinking on a juice cleanse, quote, you're drinking 4 to 6 a day, you're on the road to diabetes. Like that's should not be happening. And you're probably going to be feeling a lot of fatigue and mood swings and low blood sugar because your sugar spike is going up and down and you don't have the fiber to help balance that. And you're drinking or eating way more than you should.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Read the labels, look at the sugar too. Yeah. Look at what types of oils
yes.
And just because it says gluten-free does not mean it's a good thing, or just because it's vegan, or just because it's keto, which I'm not a big keto lover. Only in certain occasions do I think it's indicated.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. That's so
You're
helpful.
welcome.
I love it. I love it so much. I could talk forever about it. So where do you think somebody should start? So they listen to this podcast and they're like, okay, this is really interesting. There is a lot of information. It is a lot. Where do you suggest that people start educating themselves about how to live well? I'll just say it that way.
I think that one of the first things is awareness. And if you keep a food journal and be honest with yourself and write down everything that you're eating and start looking at the ingredients, you'll be very surprised. If you want to count your sugar, go on Google and look up how many grams of sugar does a banana have? How many grams of sugar does this bread have? Whatever it is, like there's sugar in everything. So when you're not being mindful of that, that's one easy way that you can start with just examining your relationship with sugar and getting it down, because there are microbes in the microbiome that demand to be fed sugar. And so we need to be aware of that and just start looking at what is inflammatory, what is non-inflammatory. Look at nightshades. Sometimes people are not good with nightshades because they have something called lectins that attack the intestinal lining. And this can cause leaky gut syndrome, which can cause even mental problems with some people. So there's all kinds of ways, but I would say maybe look at your sugar, start there, start eating less inflammatory, try to limit your grains, eat more vegetables, try to get a green drink routine, start drinking bone broth that you make, grass-fed bones, chicken feet, chicken back, start eating that 30 to 40 plants per week. And I think that's a good launching pad for most people. And just take notes, get it in your food journal, and just start seeing the tweaks that you can make. And maybe it's a pantry makeover that you need.
Mm-hmm. One thing I want to add and get your take on this is something that you advocate all the time, and definitely listen to Colette's podcast. And on there, she teaches us, she has great interviews with people who are on health journeys, personal development journeys. And then she also does an educational episode every week. And every episode, she'll say, do your own research, or she'll provide the links to the research, the studies and what have you. And I love that. I love that because that puts the responsibility in our own hands. And I'm bringing it up because I wanted to ask you this question and get your take on it. So I recently purchased, and I'm not going to name it because it's not about saying anything bad, because we learn new things all the time. So anyways, I recently purchased a new cookbook and I love it so much. And in the cookbook, in the recipes, a lot of the recipes have the ingredients, and I'm going to pronounce it wrong. Ethyl.
Oh, erythritol?
Yes.
Yes.
And there was a recent study, right, that said that is very bad. I thought that was really interesting. So I had heard about that study from Colette. Then I buy this cookbook and I see that as an ingredient. And these are people, the cookbook that I have are people that I really respect, and they are excellent. And yet new studies come out. So I just wanted to throw that out there as another example of being aware. Don't just take things at face value. Do your own research. Colette has all this great information. She's teaching us. There are other people that are teaching us. But again, be your own advocate. So I wanted to bring that up and kind of ask Colette your take on that. Like, how do you approach things as well?
Yeah, I think just going back to nature's candy as your sweetener, honey, maple syrup, being mindful again of how much of it you're consuming. But when you're trying to get this high from a sweet, and you think you're doing your body a service by not consuming sugar, but consuming artificial sugar, which sometimes we don't know until later if it's good for us or not. Growing up, through the 80s, we had the fat-free, sugar-free craze that, we would eat Entenmann's box of Entenmann's cookies, no problem. And it was actually destroying the gut. So if you can curb your palate, what is it within you that is demanding this real sweet high? What if you could have your coffee without your creamer in the morning? What if you could look at a slice of watermelon and some feta as like the best dessert ever, or baking apples and sprinkling some cinnamon, and that's a very sweet treat, because our bodies, especially in America, are so trained to get that sugar high. So I would say just challenge yourself to eat as natural as possible, be able to read the ingredients that are on the label, and look for just natural, like try to make your own stuff or get alternatives, which is why I'm making my product, because I think people need to eat non-inflammatory, and this is going to help give an option of doing that to the masses. So it's a give back.
Thank you so much, Colette. You're just a gift. Thank you so much. Aww. I'm so glad that we met. I'm so happy to have you in my life. I'm so honored and just so grateful for your time today and sharing with my audience. And everybody, listen to her podcast. It is so good. I'm not biased. Yeah. It's really good. Why don't you tell the audience how they can find out more about you and follow along?
Yeah. So my podcast, you can listen to it on any platform. The lovely Christine Santos is my editor. Limitless Healing with Colette Brown. And you can find me on Instagram at Wellness by Colette. That's 1L, 2 T's. You can find me if you want to know more about my Bodrum retreat. It's www.travelwithcolette.com. And again, 1L, 2 T's. And just reach out to me. I'm accessible and I'm here to help. And I really want to make people's lives a little bit easier because I know what it's like to be unwell and I know what it's like to feel well. And it's a dramatic difference. And I know that you can. So if you feel hopeless, you're not. Like, you just need the right tools in your tool belt, and you too can transform your life.
Thank you so much, Colette. This has been great.
Thank you, Christine. Beautiful. Thank you so much for having me.